Tracy Black.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CBI Annual Conference 2025. Can I start by saying a big thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. We've got over 900 delegates here today, coming from everywhere from Belfast to Surrey, from Cardiff to Cambridge, and from every sector of the economy. Not just business leaders, but politicians, MPs, journalists, partners, and friends of the CBI. Wherever you've come from this morning, thank you for making the time. It means a lot. Now, our theme today is "The Long Game Starts Now," because we think this is the moment when we all need to start looking beyond the politics of next week, the next headline, even the next election, and focus on the long-term success of the UK. That starts here with a packed schedule, bringing together business and government, academics, media, politicians and industry. We'll kick off with some big political speeches from our own CEO, Rain Newton-Smith, followed by Business Secretary Peter Kyle. Later in the morning, we have speeches from the Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Badenoch, followed by the Indian High Commissioner. And in the afternoon, we have another packed lineup of panels and talks, including Daisy Cooper from the Liberal Democrats, Zia Yusuf from Reform UK, Dame Claire Barclay, Sir Charlie Mayfield, and many, many more. Then finally, we'll be hearing from our own outgoing chair, Rupert Soames, introducing our new chair, Cressida Hogg, and taking our conversations into the drinks reception. So do please stick around for that. And just for a bit of housekeeping, don't miss our exhibitor stands in the networking area, including the npower Business Solutions Energy Clinic, and much more. Then to really get involved throughout the day, I do encourage you to download the app. A few of our sessions have interactive polls, and you'll need the app to take part. Just head to the programme, pick the session you're in, and scroll to the bottom to vote for your choices. So we've got a busy, exciting day with lots to look forward to. And before we get started, let me say a big thank you to everyone who's made this possible. Our conference sponsors like Lang O'Rourke, Lilly UK, npower Business Solutions, our CEO Breakfast, Halion sponsor, and our drinks reception sponsors, BP. Thanks also to our speakers, chairs, hosts, and the CBI team who've put so much into bringing this together. But most of all, thank you to all of you, our members. We are here because of you and your support, not just for today, but for the hundreds of hours you give us each year at our councils, our committees, our working groups, completing our surveys and supporting our research. Working at the CBI is a privilege and a vocation. We know when you say this is holding you back, or this change could really help you grow, you mean it and we believe it. The business leaders we meet are passionate about their companies, their colleagues, and the communities they work in. And that is why the collective voice of the CBI is so powerful and so important. And we all know if we want growth in the UK, it starts here in this room. So thank you for being here. Now, without much further ado, please welcome to the stage our CEO, Rain Newton-Smith, who's going to kick us off with a brilliant start. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy, and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our annual conference. This marks 60 years, if you can believe it, since the CBI was founded to be the voice of UK business. Through 14 prime ministers, 20 chancellors, and over 100 budgets, we've been here fighting for you and for a better economy. Because we believe in you, our business leaders. Because we know business isn't just an entry at Companies House, nor is it just a resource to be taxed when the going gets tough. You are the ones creating jobs, building opportunity, lifting living standards, finding solutions, driving real change in our communities. I've seen it firsthand. Through good times and bad, rain or shine, you literally keep the lights on in this country. Beacons against the narrative of broken Britain. That's what the CBI is here for, to back you. Today, I want to make a simple case. Right now, we have a government who say they want growth. Well, business wants growth too. And the truth is, only business can deliver it. But to do that, we need one thing from this government, and we need it now: stability. Stability that gives you the confidence to invest, to expand, to lead. If growth is our destination, stability is the only road to get there. There's no shortcut, no bypass. Stability is the road to growth. I genuinely believe this government wants growth. It wants to get down that road. And business, of course, wants them to succeed. In their first year and a half, they have tackled some of the biggest obstacles to raising living standards in our country. Deep problems in our economy left untouched for too long. Transforming our broken planning system, where to build anything new, you wade through more pages than the complete works of Shakespeare. If only brevity were the soul of wit in government. They've just announced 100 more planners to get Britain building, a key CBI budget ask. They've pledged to take a strimmer to red tape. They've set and kept a corporate tax roadmap for global competitiveness. They've protected an extra £100 billion in capital spending this Parliament, absolutely vital for our long-term growth. That is brave and bold. In months, this government has launched the most ambitious industrial strategy in years, shaped through hundreds of meetings with the CBI, with many of you in this room. We've seen the first trade strategy since Brexit, the first serious infrastructure strategy in over a decade. These are clear, ambitious plans. But here's the thing. So far, so many of them are just that, plans. Strategies may point the way, but they don't pour the concrete. Stability is the only road to growth. But at this moment, ahead of the budget on Wednesday, it feels like for too many of you, like we are off track. Because here we are again, a year on from a budget that turned to business to plug a hole, loading on £24 billion per year in extra costs, pushing the tax burden to a 25-year high, with 2/3 of those taxes hitting business before you've even made a profit. Changing inheritance tax rules for farmers and family firms alike, draining investment, squeezing margins, and putting over 200,000 jobs at risk. 1 year later, here we are again. A new fiscal gap, billions of pounds wide, more rumours, more U-turns, raising uncertainty, business holding its breath again. Investment pause, projects on hold. It feels less like we're on the move and more like we're stuck in Groundhog Day. So right now, we face a fork in the road, where our biggest fear is if we get the wrong choices on Wednesday, more short-term tinkering, more bold choices not made, more politics over growth, then we risk getting locked in a stop-start economy, where large tax rises rear their head every year or even every autumn and spring. That is not the road to growth. That is a cycle of doubt and uncertainty, a road to certain decline. Well, I don't accept that, and I don't think anyone in this room does. This is the country that forged the Industrial Revolution, that built the NHS, that leads the world in science, media, and culture. It's the country I was born in, and after growing up in Canada, I came back as an immigrant, the one I would choose again, with pride, to raise my children in. It's a country with deep roots of greatness, represented here today. Leaders of our world-class financial services, builders of everything from offshore wind platforms to digital solutions for small businesses, trailblazers in health, science, and media, universities and colleges that prepare our young people and shape the future. I have the great privilege of seeing the work you do, day in, day out. This is a country with boundless potential. And I did not come into this job to manage decline. And I know you don't come to work each day to watch opportunity slip through your fingers. So let's talk honestly about what it takes to stay on that road to growth. We have been clear with this government. There is no easy way to the growth we need, but there is a right one. It means having a goal and at every turn choosing it. So if growth is your priority, make hard choices for it. Prove it. Against opposition, against short-term politics, be it on welfare, be it pension increases, show the markets you mean business. All short-term politics leads to is long-term decline, and this country cannot afford another decade of stagnation. That means making hard choices for growth now, before they get harder. Having the courage to take 2 tough decisions rather than 20 easier ones. Raising the headroom to make promises stick. It means 1 or 2 broad tax rises rather than death by 1,000 taxes. 20 bad choices don't make for a good system. It means stop being defined by the past, own the challenges of today. Lead forward with hope and confidence. Talk up our capabilities, our universities, our brilliant business leaders here in this room. Above all, it means recognizing this budget is about credibility, about trust. You will never be able to tax your way to growth. Tax rises alone are bound to fail unless they are matched by forward momentum, radical, deep change to reignite confidence and get investment flowing. Growth, not taxes, is the only way out of decline. And that starts with business, with all of you in this room. Stability is the road to growth. But right now, there are too many roadblocks, not just the uncertainty of the budget, but across our economy. Business wants to invest, to transform the fortunes of this country. But when we need a green light to go, there are too many red lights yet delivered. How can you compete? How can you invest when you are straining under some of the highest electricity costs in the world? Targeted support helps, but this is an issue that touches every business. How can you grow your business on the ground when the rate system actively holds you back? How can business hire for growth, build on the Mayfield Review, help 3 million people with long-term health conditions back into work, when some key government choices pull the other way? When NICs rises and likely changes to salary sacrifice make it more costly to take a chance on people. When we have an employment rights bill that 8 in 10 firms say in its current form makes it harder to say, yes, I can find a job for you. These are not academic issues. They are brakes on growth with real consequences for real people. So our message is simple. If this government truly wants the road to growth, work with business to fix what's broken at this budget and beyond. Pick up the policies that have sat in the too difficult box for too long. Forge a tax system that rewards investment, a rate system that encourages growth. Get building the infrastructure we need. Get the economy moving. Go big and go bold. Deliver, deliver, deliver on the promises you've made. Businesses can help with real partnership between public and private. Since 2018, when we stopped public-private partnerships, our competitors have delivered over 1,000 partnerships, building hospitals, schools, and smart cities around the world. Opportunities we missed, growth that just slid past. Don't let it happen again. Work with us. On energy costs, business back the energy transition, the only long-term path to sustainable growth. And we know that takes new infrastructure. But how we pay for it must reflect the value it delivers over time. Instead of short-term patches, we need a long-term, affordable solution that recognizes the role of the North Sea in our transition, that fixes the structure of our energy bills, the system and policy charges that push UK electricity costs above our competitors. Work with us to make it happen. And finally, change course on the Employment Rights Bill. Lasting reform takes partnership, not a closed door. The minimum wage, the last Labour government's defining reform, has endured for almost 30 years because it was built together. Business, government, unions working side by side, shoulder to shoulder. That's true social partnership. Rising living standards, real progress, lasting change. But with this bill, though the government said it wanted to listen, as of yet there's been no meaningful change. It's disappointing and damaging. We want reform that works and endures, that lasts for generations. For that, government must change course, ask business and unions to forge consensus through compromise. It's a model that delivered before, and it can deliver again, for working people and for growth. And remember, tough choices only matter if they move us forward. When you take people down a hard road, you must show them where it leads. Not just management, but leadership and vision. Because confidence comes from stability, but also from hope. The courage to imagine the destination. A UK growing with confidence again, led by business, where planning decisions take weeks, not years, where business give young people their start and older workers their next chapter, where firms choose to invest and manufacture and list here, where we stand up for free and fair trade, attracting investment and talent from around the world, where we don't just promise critical infrastructure, we build it. Better trains, better hospitals, homes and communities, where families live longer, healthier, happier lives in a country not falling behind, but leading once more. That is the road to growth. Yes, the road ahead is hard, but we have walked harder roads before. Yes, the way ahead is long, but we are determined, we are resolute. Business wants to get there, but that ambition must be met with action. From a government that chooses stability, that chooses renewal, that chooses growth at every turn. Let's make this the moment we stop stalling. Let's make this the moment we shift gear. Let's make this a country not stuck, but surging ahead on the road to growth. Not broken Britain, but a country moving forward to a better future. Thank you. It is now my greatest pleasure to introduce to the stage the Right Honourable Peter Kyle MP, Secretary of State for Business and Trade.
Thank you so very much, Rain. There's a lot of challenge in your speech, as there should be. A lot of challenge always from CBI in good times and in challenging times. But I want to say to you directly that the challenges that you put to me are challenges that I accept and I will strive to deliver. Now, this is my first real opportunity to set out as a business secretary to a business audience what my priorities actually are and what I want to actually do. This is the opportunity that I've been looking forward to ever since I was given this job. Firstly, I want to reiterate that the number one mission of this government is and remains economic growth. Secondly, I want to acknowledge to a room full of people who deliver that growth that this government gets where it comes from. Economic growth is a whole government enterprise. You can't have growth if goods aren't flowing freely to, from, and within our economy. You can't have growth if people aren't getting to work on time, if people don't feel fit, healthy, and ready to work. And I mean ready in every sense. I mean they've also got to have the education, the skills they need to do the job, and to do that job well. All of that is the government's responsibility. Getting transport right, getting healthcare right, getting skills and education right. These are the foundations upon which growth is delivered. But let's not kid ourselves. Actual growth, real growth, comes from enterprise and wealth creation. The decision to take the risk to start a business, the profitable operation of a business. It comes from foundation, expansion, seizing opportunities, and entrepreneurialism. So, let me say this. My priority in this job is to break down the barriers to business growth, to create the right conditions for you to do what you do best, creating wealth and opportunity. I want us to turn the corner on the low, slow, uneven growth Britain has experienced for almost 2 decades. I want to summon the strength, the ambition, and the belief to drive the economy that grows with purpose, works for everyone, and delivers for people across the country. Turning the corner on growth is not like the slow alteration of turning an oil tanker. It's more like turning out of a harbour in a speedboat. The bumpiest moments are getting up to speed, but once you're there, you bounce from wave to wave, steady, stable, and on course. Now, I say this because I know that the last few months, really the last few years, have been anything but easy. The austerity years, the botched Brexit deal, COVID, and trade disruption. For your resilience and your refusal to never give up or give in, I want to say thank you. Your resilience has been and remains one of Britain's great national assets. But resilience alone is not a strategy. It is the deliberate response to a lack of strategy. Every strategy starts with acknowledging the reality, and that reality is we do have some reasons for optimism. We have made some progress together, but I know that we do need to go further and faster. If you trade abroad, you will benefit from the trade agreements that we have secured with India and the US, saving you billions of pounds in tariffs and duties. We've negotiated a new strategic partnership with the European Union. This will make it quicker and easier for you to do business with our nearest and largest trading market. And we are negotiating more. If you need planning approval for a new factory or a new data centre, you will benefit from our planning infrastructure bill. It's the biggest shake-up of the planning system in an entire generation. We're investing £120 billion more in national infrastructure projects, like Sizewell B and the Lower Thames Crossing, and supporting Heathrow's expansion. But those planning reforms mean major infrastructure projects will be delivered at least a year faster on average. Now, it takes time to get legislation through Parliament, but it will make a difference. Our £13.9 billion record investment in transformational research and development will boost British business competitiveness in life sciences, in green energy, engineering, and far beyond. If you need to hire staff with specialist skills, you will benefit from the expanded Global Talent Visa and our new Global Talent Task Force, which is beginning to bring the world's best researchers and engineers and investors here to the UK. It's about to launch. And through our modern industrial strategy, which we published in June, we are taking the long-term decisions to significantly strengthen and transform the UK industrial landscape. We're going all in on industries that we know can win for Britain and win big. So, we are turning a corner, powered by the resilience and ingenuity of British businesses, determined to transform their potential into profit. And by doing so, contribute towards real, lasting economic growth. And there are further early signs for optimism. Inflation is down. The Bank of England has cut rates 5 times since the election. Real wages are growing. And we were the fastest growing G7 economy over the first half of the year, and the IMF forecasts the UK to be the second largest growing economy in the G7 for the whole year, behind only the United States. Now, despite global conflicts, the threat of new tariffs, rising international borrowing costs, because of the choices that we've made, we are able to resolve, and we are able to show, slowly but surely, that we are turning a corner and unlocking economic momentum, the momentum that our country craves. Now, I know that business needs boldness, creativity, and it needs urgency. And that is how I intend to do this job. Now, what I'm about to say goes right to the heart of the changes that I'm going to make, and also why I was appointed to this job in the first place. I am relentless. I have never accepted no for an answer. And in my whole life, people have told me no. Sitting school exams, no. Getting to university, no. Starting a business, getting elected to Parliament, joining the cabinet. It's always been the same old story. Now, I don't think that the challenge of my dyslexia as being a superpower. But being told no so many times, it does teach you a lesson. And the lesson is, if you are bloody-minded and have bloody-minded determination to get things done, it works. Now, I left school with no real qualifications, but pestered the body shop to give me a job. With Anita Roddick's help, I got to university, and then I got a doctorate. I got selected for Labour in the previously unwinnable Conservative seat in Hove, and I won it. Now, today, I'm the president, admittedly of the Board of Trade, but you've got to start somewhere. Now, I am determined to fight for you, British businesses, every day. I don't give up when people say it's too difficult, or it's never been done before, or it's never been done like this. I know government is sometimes seen as a millstone, slowing things down, holding people back, splitting the differences, rather than making a clear choice of direction. But that is not how I do things. As Technology Secretary, I was accused of being too close to big tech because I met businesses 70% more times than my predecessor. It made the front pages. Now, that's a criticism that I happily accept, and it's one that I expect to repeat in this job. Because it's only by talking to you and listening to you and learning from you that I can understand what it is that you need from me. In my first few weeks as Secretary of State, I've tried to operate at breakneck speed. I've set out a host of new areas where we will reduce the regulatory burdens on business. No more mandatory strategic reports for medium-sized firms. No more directors' reports for businesses of every size. We're saving businesses some £230 million every single year. I announced the shake-up of our key regulators with a complete programme of independent assessments where we identify regulators that are doubling up, stepping on each other's toes, or out of touch of the realities of the modern economy. We will streamline them. And today we are going even further and turning the corner with a renewed confidence, ready to unleash the energy and enterprise to build stronger, fairer, faster-growing economy. I am this morning announcing a rolling programme of industry-led task forces to scrutinise regulation that's slowing down growth across our country. These task forces will identify the red tape that needs to be culled, and they will recommend smarter, sharper regulation that builds and benefits a modern, competitive business landscape. And from today, the government's British Business Bank will also increase its pace of investment by 2/3 with a £4 billion boost to the most promising businesses in the industrial strategy sectors to scale up and stay here. Over the next 5 years, it will support 180,000 UK businesses in all. We are creating a stronger, more resilient economy with a £50 million funding to turbocharge production and processing of critical minerals in Britain. And after years of the highest electricity prices in the G7, I can initiate the flagship policy to bring down electricity bills. We're launching our consultation on the British Industrial Competitiveness Scheme. We want to reduce electricity costs for over 7,000 eligible manufacturing businesses. That will save up to £40 per megawatt hour from April 2027. Now, I invite the CBI and all of your members to share your views on how best to get the BICS scheme right for businesses who need it the most. And there's more to come. My pledge to you today is that we will do everything we can to turn the corner. We don't intend to do it to you, but we will do it with you. We will build a pro-business, pro-wealth creation, pro-growth Britain. This week's budget will take the fair and necessary choices to embed that further. We will not repeat the mistakes of previous governments by losing control of public spending and uncontrolled borrowing. We will cut the national debt by sticking to our tough spending plans and clamping down on government waste and inefficiency. And we will push ahead relentlessly with the biggest drive for growth in a generation. Economic growth is built on the bedrock of stability. In the budget, the Chancellor will take the tough decisions necessary to keep inflation down, protect families and businesses from rising costs, to safeguard the public services and keep debt under control for the long term. For too often, too many commentators have been too keen to talk our country down. Last Thursday, for example, one national newspaper ran an article that was entitled, "Why Everyone Who Can Leave Britain Should Do So Before It's Too Late." Now, sometimes I feel in these tough times, these modern-day Jeremiahs take a perverse pleasure in predicting economic doom and gloom. And the truth is, the Britain that I know is a can-do nation, not a make-do nation. There need be no cap on our national ambition, no barrier to growing our economy further and faster if we reject the doommongers and the naysayers, set our minds to it, and support British businesses to deliver. No one built a successful business by believing that they would fail. As the inspirational American activist Helen Keller said, "Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement, and nothing can be done without confidence." My own dad worked his way out of poverty by first serving in the Navy, and after that he left the Navy and went into business, working his way up from door-to-door salesman to growing and then eventually owning the business. Now, I saw what it took to do that. The personal sacrifice, the time he sacrificed with his family and his friends, the single-minded determination to make the next sale, to make the next step, to guarantee that you could pay the next month's wage bill. Now, the safe belief triumphing over other people's doubts. Now, that is what makes an entrepreneur. Now, I lost my dad last year, shortly before the election. There are times that I miss him most of all, and standing here before the CBI as Britain's business secretary is one of those moments. Now, my dad, like every entrepreneur in this room, had confidence in what could be done and what he could do to make it happen. And there are some real reasons to have confidence in Britain too. We are a country with huge strengths, unmatched scientific capabilities, a globally influential financial sector, creative brilliance in every region, and manufacturing expertise admired around the world. As we turn the corner, there is every reason for national economic optimism. I believe that if we make the right decisions now, we can lead the world in clean energy, biotechnology, AI, advanced manufacturing, creative content, fintech, digital trade, and in the next generation of industries that have yet to be imagined. That is only possible if we make Britain a better place to do business, a more rewarding location to take business risks, the start-ups and scale-ups capital Europe of the world, of Europe, to enhance the skills and the workforce and employability of our people, to create a more productive and competitive economy, an economy that works for everyone wherever you live. None of that is easy, but neither is it impossible if we demonstrate the necessary boldness, creativity, and yes, urgency. If we have the same confidence and optimism that drives Britain's entrepreneurs and builds Britain's best businesses, then I have no doubt that with your help, it is achievable. As we turn the corner, we will prove that as the nation summons its collective strengths, we can revive economic growth, restore opportunity, and build national prosperity and emerge stronger than ever. Thank you. Thank you.
Secretary of State, I think it's great to see we've got one of my history heroes in common through Helen Keller. I think that hope and confidence really shone through. And I think what we were both talking about is just that sheer determination to get things done. And I think we were both together on that trip in India where we were with the business delegation. And I think if you think internationally, this government has delivered so much over the past year in a closer relationship with the EU, a deal with India, and some of the, let's say, damage limitation perhaps with our relationship with the US and the high level of tariffs. But I guess you talked a lot about the gap between ambition on growth domestically and the delivery. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about how you see your role in Cabinet on really pushing for fixing that gap and what you see as the big priorities to really unleash growth. And then I will open up to the audience, so do get your questions ready.
Thanks. And it's really nice of you to segue into the conversation, enabling me to focus on some of the things we have achieved. But I don't want to duck the difficult challenges that you also posed in your speech. It's interesting to point out that the trip we were on to India for was not to sign the deal. That trip was there to exploit the deal. You know, you repeatedly mentioned delivery. I'm new in this job of Secretary of State for Business and Trade. In my previous job, though, look what I did there. You know, the AI Opportunities Action Plan, the growth zones, the delivery of transformational apps that every citizen has by the end of this year, the rollout of the digital driving license will happen. That is delivery, delivery, delivery from the first moment. And I accept that now I'm in a job which is so directly responsible, not for the long-term economic growth, which my role in DSIT was mostly focused on, but it is also how I have the opportunity to find ways to get short-term, as well as medium-term and long-term growth. That is something that I know needs to be tackled with absolute urgency. And yes, the planning reforms, it takes legislation. Yes, some of the regulatory reforms. Just in the first few weeks in this job, that £230 million of regulatory reform was found within the department. I want to find ways we can find that in every department, because if that money is knocking around in the DBT, you can bet your bottom dollar it's there elsewhere. So we're putting together a team in DBT so we can go and assist other departments to do so. And that's doing work that doesn't require legislation. And of course, I'm open-minded about where we go from there. But in terms of my job around the Cabinet table, that hasn't really changed. I mean, I've been banging the drum for growth since I got into Cabinet. I accept, and just to say from the outset, before we go to questions, there is one thing that we all know in this room, but you just need to kind of just restate from time to time. When you win an election, you don't go back to zero and start again. You start off where the other lot left off. And the extent of challenges, you know, that Brexit left us, that some of the other period of intense instability left us. The COVID inquiry is releasing some of the things that we now know were happening during that period. These are all things that we inherited and have to fix, and you can't fix it in one budget, in 1 month, or even in 1 year, which is why we've tried wherever possible to frame what we're doing around the decade of national renewal, where you see things like the industrial strategy, which points to stability in the long term. And as one American investor said to me just at the Birmingham Growth Summit, Investment Summit a couple of weeks ago, that the reason why he's so excited about the UK is that he met me 1 week into my job, but the core industrial strategy remains the same. New Secretary of State, same core policies into the long term, but I will bring to this a relentlessness that I hope has already exhibited itself in the first few weeks, and I haven't even started yet.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure we'll see some of that determination coming through the room. If I can open up to questions from the floor, and I'll try and group a couple of questions as well. There should be some roving mics as well. Let's take the gentleman just, mic number 1, just there. There's a gentleman there. And I can see a lady in the back on the far right. So if I could take those 2 questions, please.
Thank you. Will Lane from the Advertising Association. The UK advertising industry exports over 18 billion in advertising services, and we're number 2 behind the US. However, we rely on funding for trade shows to open up new markets like China and Saudi. What more can government do to help fund these industry-led trade missions? Thank you.
Brilliant. A great question on trade missions. And the lady on the, I can't see the number 2 over there.
Hi, I'm Sarah Waddington. I'm the CEO of the Public Relations and Communications Association. I'm just interested because Secretary of State, you talked about the challenges faced, and Rain, you talked about taking people down a dark road, but also needing to show them where that will lead. Now, I don't think the vision that we've heard this morning is cutting through to UK business or to members of the public. And more than that, we've just had a series of shambolic pre-budget briefings that have created more disillusionment and discontent. So I'm just keen to understand where the government comms strategy is going wrong, because I have many members who are willing and ready to help.
Yeah. So I think, Secretary of State, there's a second question there, I think, particularly around some of the uncertainty that has certainly been looming with lots of different decisions and changing of tack ahead of the budget. So,
firstly, on the trade delegations and the work we do abroad, I am streamlining the work of in DBT. We have fantastic staff in most embassies and consulate services around the world. But when you look at the fast-growing sectors in the world, and when you look at the fast-growing countries around the world and territories, I think we can do more to front-load support into those areas so we can further exploit what are the high-growth opportunities that we face as a country. And that's what I'll be doing. But also aligning much more, when we do that work, some of the trips that the Prime Minister and myself and the others do, so that we can take these delegations with us, because I think the India delegation was fantastically successful. It's 126 businesses that we took on that, and we actually struck several £1 billion worth of deals on that one trip. So I think there is a lot more that we can do with that, and that's something that we just need to be more entrepreneurial in the way that we engage with business, see ourselves as being partners of business, and that means we can do certain things as a government that you can't do. You can strike the deals that we can't strike, so there means that there needs to be more synergy in the 2020s than you would have had in previous times. In the run-up to the budget, look, I did the media round this morning, and I did sort of 10 or 12 interviews when I'm asked a lot about this, and you're asked about the sort of process leading up to the budget rather than the fundamental things we're trying to do. That, of course, is as frustrating for me as it is for the listeners. Where exasperation is expressed from the business community around the narrative running up to this budget, well, I'm all ears, I'll be listening to it, and I'll be making sure your voice is heard for the next budget.
Thank you. Let's open up to another couple of questions. I can see, there's Mike just here, and a gentleman in the second row here as well.
So, Peter Morning, Steve Rigby from Family Business UK. In business, we see activist investors pulling boards in different directions. But in the government today, we have a whole series of activist groups in the party pulling, frankly, in quite different directions. How do we get the party more unified behind growth?
Thanks. Well, a parliamentary democracy is a parliamentary democracy, and it's not just within the Labour Party that you have, of course, it's right across the House of Commons. Within the Labour Party, you have seen a unanimity of purpose when it comes to delivering the core economic stability measures that we've brought in. Now, I think that what we need to double down more on, which is my job, I'm criticising myself more than anyone else, is to express the singular importance of economic growth. Now, economic growth has become a kind of catchphrase in a way that we use very regularly. But I'm working really hard to see how we personalise that to everyone. Because people, whether you're living alone or whether you're in a family, whether you're working in a business or you're running a business, economic growth is the key that unlocks all of the opportunities that we want to seek individually, as families, as communities, and as a country. It is a singular challenge of our time. We inherited a situation when we came into office where we were stuck in this vice-like grip of high taxes and low growth. And we are not going to break out of this cycle unless we do some pretty a growth emergency. I really have inherited a growth emergency, and we are still in it. And we will be in it for as long as we're unable to get our way out of this situation without relying on increased economic productivity, as opposed to just the sort of normal tax rises or government cuts. It'll only take you so far. It's finite. Economic growth is a new opportunity, and we have to grab it with both hands. Now, already, you will see that we have taken on some really challenging areas. Planning reform is not easy. It's not easy for communities, it's not easy in Parliament, but we will do what it takes to get it done. In an emergency situation, in an emergency environment, you have license to do things that you don't in other times. And I'm looking really closely at what those measures are. What are things that we could do to shock our economy into growth, to inspire our economy into growth, that sometimes wouldn't have been accepted in other times? That's the kind of debate I think we need to have. When I first came into this job, I was on the plane within a few hours to America to work on the tech partnership and also to further the cause for trade with the States. And I went straight from the States to China and undertook the first trade negotiations for 7 years with China. At the same time, I was dealing with the JLR cyber attack, and I hope you are all learning from the JLR cyber attack and making sure your businesses are robust in the moment that we're living in. But I acted with boldness and creativity and urgency over that because JLR and the West Midlands economy was in an emergency. Now I'm taking that same approach to that emergency to the need to get growth into our economy. And I hope that as you see me in this job in the weeks and months ahead, you will recognise that I will be acting as stridently when it comes to growth as I did in an emergency situation that everybody acknowledged was an emergency when it came to JLR.
Just here, number 2, and I'll see if we can squeeze in just one other as well.
I'll be quick.
Super quick.
Thank you. Martin Taylor, co-founder, Redwood Technologies Group. Governments around the world use their own procurement power to boost their domestic industries and drive economic growth. The UK is home to many mid-cap, globally competitive tech companies, of which we're one. Yet we find in the terms of recent and current major government procurement that the terms are skewed so as to prevent British businesses from bidding successfully. So instead, these opportunities, golden opportunities, are being presented to foreign competitors whose solutions are usually not as suitable. So the question is really, will the government put its money where its mouth is, back British business, and help us grow the sovereign technology base? Or should businesses like ours move overseas to get the growth we need?
Maybe just one question in the front here, number 2. And then over to you. Last.
Tim Drake, CEO of a business called Acora, based in Cambridge. We design and manufacture medical devices and assistive technology. I'm sure you'd appreciate I have a view on the EIB. One thing I think is going below the radar is the significant impact that trade unions will have, being able to get weekly access and significant fines if we're found to be in breach of any of their legislation. Would the government consider a carve-out so that small businesses are not hamstrung by additional legislation at this moment in time?
Thank you. I'm glad somebody mentioned the ERB. It gives me the chance, and I've got 1 minute, so I'm going to do it really quickly. Firstly, on the Procurement Act has now gone live. It gives an enormous amount of new freedoms to make sure that we can support British business in the procurement that we have as a central government. It's my intention to work with other government departments to make sure that we max out the opportunity that we now have in terms of the powers we have today that we didn't have when we came into office, to make sure that we support British business. When it comes to emerging technology like AI, we now have the sovereign AI unit based in Number 10, working to the DSIT Secretary of State and to the Prime Minister to make sure that we support British development of AI and other technologies. When it comes to the ERB, let me just be really clear about this. The Labour manifesto was very, very clear on 2 things. Firstly, that we would have legislation that would be both pro-business and it would be pro the people who work in businesses, and the 2 would not be put into contention against each other. That is the intention of our manifesto, and that was the promise that our manifesto made. Secondly, it made the explicit promise that we would consult before implementing the measures. Now, many of the measures have gone through, will go through with primary legislation, but when it comes to things like zero-hours contracts and day one rights and some of the other areas, there will be 26 consultations that will be launched once the bill clears Parliament. And that gives us the opportunity to make sure that the detail of the implementation is true to the promise our manifesto made. That is, pro-business and pro the people who work in businesses, to create a more harmonious relationship, not ever making it zero-sum. I will not allow it to become a zero-sum. Give one to the other loses either rights or responsibilities. This has to be got right, but this is a key opportunity Because since the last update to employment rights, we have had zero-hours contracts becoming prominent in our economy. Being employed by apps has become prominent in our economy, and hire and refi has emerged into it. And I don't think any good business seeks to become competitive on the back of those emerging trends alone. Core businesses benefit from having great products and services and relationships with their customers and staff. And I believe that we will get this right because you have a Secretary of State that has gone back to that manifesto and is determined to implement the Employment Rights Bill along those lines going forward. And can I say that when we launch these consultations, please engage with it, make your voice heard, and engage with me and my department to make sure that we get it right.
Secretary of State, thank you for joining us today. I know we will both lead forward with hope, confidence and determination
and
to
urgency.
see that growth. Exactly. So we will hold you to account.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Thank you.
You're live.
No, I'm not going to do it.
Welcome everybody to our first panel session of the conference.
that is definitely something that the government needs to do a better job on. The Ministry of Defence, we've allocated 10% of their equipment budget to novel and innovative technologies as well. And I think it's a really big opportunity for this government to, with strategic procurement, to make sure that businesses in the UK have access to our markets easier. Yeah. And that's the whole process that we're going through at the moment as well. But I thought it was a really important question to acknowledge.
Well, I think that's really important to hear. And again, another example of where we can think about really investing in the talent and those capabilities within the UK and helping them to scale as well. Well, thank you to everyone for your contributions today. I think we've had a really positive discussion around some of those opportunities in the UK, actually thinking about how we can make sure we're making that positive pitch to global investors. And importantly, I think we're really talking a lot about that partnership, about how we can all work together to actually bring some of those opportunities to life as well. So thank you very much to my whole panel. If we just thank again Minister Lockwood, Tracy Brevin and Andrew Dudley as well. Thank you very much for the discussion today. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Ah, yes, yes, yes. If that wasn't excitement enough, it gives me immense pleasure to introduce onto the stage the leader of Her Majesty's loyal opposition, Right Honourable Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you for everything that you have done at the CBI. When I first became business secretary, the CBI was not in the good place that it is now. It was a distressed asset, and I think between Rain and Rupert, they have done a fantastic job turning things around. I remember at the time people saying... I remember at the time people saying that the CBI would cease to exist, other organisations were going to take over. I'm very pleased to see you go from strength to strength, but I am very sad, Rupert, that this is your last CBI conference, so thank you so much for all that you have done. And thank you, all of you. I know that you're all very busy people. You have staff to pay, customers to serve, boards to convince, banks to placate, and you're spending your time this morning with me. I'm very, very grateful. Because the people in this room, you, are the people who keep Britain going. You are the people who drive our economy, and I know how hard things have been. Over the past year, I have visited more than 150 businesses, big listed companies, family firms, tech startups here and in the US, manufacturers in the Midlands, hospitality in coastal towns, oil and gas firms in Aberdeen. I have sat in your boardrooms, walked on your shop floors and back offices, and I have listened. And what you tell me is very simple. You want to grow, you want to invest, you want to hire, but you feel squeezed, second-guessed, constantly interfered with by a government that doesn't really understand how business works. We are all waiting in trepidation for the budget in just 2 days' time. We spent the last 3 months hearing nothing except which horrible taxes are coming. But when I visit businesses and I ask them what causes the most anxiety, yes, they do talk about the tax burden, but the single measure that is complained about more than any other is this government's program is not a tax rise. It is the Employment Rights Bill. Businesses don't oppose rights for workers. You know that good staff are your most valuable asset, but you can see, better than anyone in Westminster, that this bill is not about fairness. It is about power. It is about putting unions in charge of your workplace and sending you the bill. So I want to explain why Conservatives oppose it, why we will repeal the terrible measures in it, and how that fits into a bigger Conservative plan to get Britain working again. First, let's be clear what we are dealing with. This bill is not a little tweak to modernise the law. It is a 330-page assault on flexible working written in the TUC's headquarters, designed to drag Britain back to a world where unions call the shots and employers carry the blame. For 30 years, flexible labour markets have been one of Britain's real strengths. They allowed us to create millions of jobs after the financial crisis. They helped us keep unemployment much lower than competitor countries. They are one of the reasons we became the largest exporter of financial services in the world right up till 2024. This bill rips that up. Take day one tribunal rights. Under this bill, a new hire can turn up at 9 in the morning and lodge a claim with an employment tribunal before they've even worked out where the toilets are. There are already 491,000 claims in the tribunal backlog. Yes, you heard that right. 491,000 claims right now. It takes about 2 years for a case to be heard. Most employers are told by their lawyers to settle, even when they have done nothing wrong, because it is not worth the hassle or the expense to fight the case. That does not protect workers. It just makes hiring riskier, slower, and a lot more expensive. It is a gift to the litigious and a disincentive for anyone who wants to give someone a job. Then there is the de facto ban on seasonal and flexible work. If a university undergraduate, a student, anyone chooses to get a Christmas job and works 40 hours a week in the 3 months to December, they then have the right to those same hours in January, February, and March. Except there's no demand then. There's no need for extra staff or the money to pay them. So a measure designed to ensure employment does the opposite and everyone loses. You know what happens then. Rational employers stop taking on seasonal staff at all. The farm does not hire the extra fruit pickers, the hotel does not take on staff for the summer, and of course, the high street shop does not offer Christmas jobs. These are the very opportunities that got many of us started. My first job was on the high street. I started at McDonald's, and then I got a job in New Look, part-time. Those were the places that gave me a chance to learn. Many of you in this room probably had your first job during a summer holiday or on a Christmas shift. These opportunities are at a real risk of disappearing because of this legislation. And there is more. Let's look at the so-called right to roam. Under this bill, any union with designs on your workforce gets the legal right to march into your private business to recruit members. If you employ 21 or more people, that union can insist that you gather your staff, give it physical access to your workplace, and even provide a platform on your internal digital networks for the union. And they can do this every single week. It's in the legislation. This is not industrial relations. This is industrial intimidation. And then we have lower strike thresholds. Today, unions need a 50% turnout to call a lawful strike. Under Labour's bill, that safeguard is attacked. There just needs to be a majority of those who turn out in favour of strike action. So to use an extreme example, in a workforce of 1,000, if only 3 people choose to vote and 2 of them vote to strike, the entire organisation can be held to ransom. Yes, this is an extreme example, but it is to highlight the absurdity of these provisions. This is what happens when you design law in a back room at the TUC instead of in the real world. None of this is about giving ordinary workers a fair deal. It is all about giving union barons, bureaucrats, and employment lawyers more power. So when I say that this is not a pro-worker bill, I mean it. It is a pro-union, anti-business, anti-growth blueprint. It punishes the people who create jobs, and it will hurt the very people that it claims to help. That is why Conservatives will repeal every job-destroying anti-business measure in it. Britain cannot prosper with a state that smothers ambition and a labour market that is designed solely for union bosses rather than for the millions of people who want to work, hire, build, and grow. Now, some people will say that this is all exaggerated. They will say it is about fairness and that somehow Britain can absorb all of this without cost. You know that that is not true. It will cost businesses £5 billion. Peter Kyle said this morning that the government's #1 priority is growth. This destroys growth. That £5 billion that will have to be met with higher prices or fewer jobs. I do not believe that a government that has growth as a #1 priority will be pushing this. They have their heads in the sand. I heard Peter Kyle today say that there are going to be 26 consultations, so it's going to be all right. It is not going to be all right. And if 26 consultations are what you need to fix things, then you have a really, really big problem. We do not have a growth problem in the UK because British people need more rights. We have a growth problem because the state is too big. Fewer and fewer people are working to support more and more people out of work and living on welfare. The rider is getting heavier than the horse. And then look at the productivity costs. Every hour spent dealing with a tribunal claim is an hour you are not spending on a new product. Every law that makes you think twice about hiring is a law that stops someone getting their first job. Every regulation that moves risk from the state to the employer nudges investment out of Britain and into countries that still understand reward. Right now, Britain needs more people in work, more investment, more experts, more risk-taking, not more rules. We need to get Britain working again. That is how we pay for our NHS. That is how we fund defence. That is how we look after the vulnerable. Keir Starmer talks the talk of national renewal and growth, but he walks the walk of stagnation and decline. And that is why this bill is such a problem. It attacks the very flexibility that made us resilient in the past. It tells investors that our politics is moving in the wrong direction. It makes it harder to hire, harder to fire, harder to adapt. It is the opposite of what a serious pro-growth strategy would look like, and the price tag is eye-watering. The government's own impact assessments put that cost to employers at £5 billion a year. This wasn't us that made up that number. That has come from the government, and they're still doing it. So who are we fighting for when we oppose this bill? It's very clear. We are on the side of the small business that cannot afford an in-house legal team, but still wants to take a chance on a young apprentice. We are on the side of the saver and the pensioner whose livelihoods depend on this country actually growing. We are on the side of the worker who wants work to pay, not to be trapped in a welfare system that rewards idleness and punishes effort. We are on the side of the young person looking for their first break, who may find that opportunity never exists because this bill stops companies making an offer. We are not on the side of those who treat business as a piggy bank and the law as a political weapon. What Britain needs now is real fairness. Real fairness means living within our means out of respect for taxpayers. It means helping people back to work because idleness wastes lives. It means planning for tomorrow's children, not just today's headlines. That is why our economic argument is simple. We need to get Britain working to deliver a stronger economy. To do that, government must get its own house in order. Our golden economic rule is clear. For every pound we save, at least half goes to paying down the deficit, and the rest goes to investing in our priorities for growth. But living within our means is only half the story. We also need a state that stops suffocating enterprise. That means a relentless focus on deregulation and simplification. So how do you know that I'm serious? It's because I've done it before. When I was business secretary, I started a smarter regulation program. We reformed working time reporting requirements, saving businesses up to £1 billion a year. We raised company size thresholds to take smaller firms out of the most onerous reporting rules. I said a hard no to things like mandatory ethnicity pay reporting that would have created spreadsheets for all sorts of activists instead of jobs for workers. That is the direction we must go in again. A Conservative government, led by me, would scrap pointless reporting burdens and let managers manage. We would focus the state on what it should do: secure our borders, enforce the law, protect property rights, provide essential services, reliable infrastructure, and then get out of your way. For those of you who don't know, this week is Family Business Week. So it's a great opportunity to remind everyone that it is Conservative policy to scrap Labour's family business tax. And there is so much more. But we are doing this not because we are anti-worker, but because we know where growth really comes from. It does not come from the Treasury. It comes from you. From the risk you take when you sign that lease, from the mortgage you put up against your own home, from the hours you put in after everyone else has gone home, and we believe you should be rewarded for that. So on Wednesday, we will finally see the budget, although it feels as if we've seen about 3 different versions of it before Rachel Rees has even stood at the dispatch box. And I expect that we will hear warm words about fairness and national renewal. We will be told that there is a hole in the public finances and that everyone must do their bit, and we will see tax rises dressed up as necessity. They're not. We need to cut spending. But if Rachel Reeves is serious about growth, if this government really cares about the future of British business, there is one easy, cost-free decision that they can take. And that is to scrap the Employment Rights Bill. This bill does not raise a single pound in revenue. It does not help a single unemployed person into work. It does not add a single unit of productivity. It is a pure political project. Killing it would be a sign to the world that Britain still understands what makes an economy grow. And if the Chancellor had any sense and any regard for business, she would use the budget to say, "We got this one wrong," and then she would drop it. It would be the cheapest pro-growth measure in the Red Book. And if she does not, then I repeat my promise. At the first opportunity under my leadership, a Conservative government will repeal every job-destroying anti-growth measure in this bill, and we will restore common sense. We will send a very clear message that Britain is open for business again. But I will end with this, a message to all of you. You cannot sit this out. Too often in recent years, business has retreated from the argument for fear of criticism. That cannot continue. If you believe in enterprise, believe in opportunity, and believe in the idea that wealth has to be created before it can be shared, then we need you. Speak up. Tell your staff what this bill means for jobs. Tell your customers what constant tax rises and red tape are doing to prices. Challenge those who treat you as a problem to be managed, not a partner in our national success. The choice for Britain is stark. It's a future of higher taxes, thicker rule books, and slower growth, or a country where government lives within its means, business is free to grow, and work pays once again. I know which side I'm on. And if you stand with us, let's get Britain working again. Then together we can deliver a stronger economy and a better future for our country.
Wow. That's really good. And you may know that on the Employment Rights Bill, the CBI has been chirping almost as loudly as Andrew Griffith has on the iniquities of it. But do you sense now, you are, 15 months into your job, do you sense
12 months.
What?
12 months.
Is it only 12? It's
only 12.
Time flies when you're having fun. We're going to come to questions in a moment. But do you feel that you're getting better at it?
Well, like any job that you're doing for the first time, yes, of course you do.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone who was at their best on their first day. And in fact, you should be worried at anybody who's at their best on their first day. Yeah. I mean, just even understanding what we were dealing with, what the landscape was going to be. But it's getting clearer and clearer, the direction the country is going. It's very hard to be in opposition if you can't see what it is you are opposing. And you look at the last budget, there was a lot of talk about growth. We haven't seen any growth. There were all sorts of measures around planning. Those things aren't happening. Nothing's happening. We are in stasis. People are leaving the country. I mean, the FT had 1 in 8 business leaders, was at the Telegraph the other day, 1 in 8 business leaders leaving. That's appalling. So it's becoming clear what we need to do. We need to be the party of growth, the party of business, and we need people to hear our message. We also need to acknowledge that we made mistakes in government. You will remember a lot of the things I was banging my head against the wall about. I'm now in charge, and I've started junking all of the silly things which happened, and I've got lots more good stuff that will be coming in due course.
Fantastic. Let's go to questions from the floor. There should be paddles going around giving scores out of 10. So can I have a question, please? Question. On the right paddle number. Oh, in the front. And please say who you are.
Stephen Hay, the Association of Manufacturers of Domestic Appliances. Kemi, you talked about deregulation, and essentially, you did a lot of work in this area when you were in government. And the Secretary of State also spoke about the fact that he was looking to cut the red tape. But in effect, we're seeing quite a strange situation with regulation at the moment. We're seeing, obviously, great divergence between the UK and the EU. We're seeing regulatory burden, we're seeing regulatory drag, and this cutting the red tape seems like a pipe dream at the moment. So how do you feel about that? Because we certainly are feeling the burden of regulation and duplication of effort, left, right, and centre. And this is costing business, and especially manufacturers, a vast amount of money.
You're absolutely right. And one of the things that was supposed to happen after leaving the EU was the divergence should have been in our favour. That did mean us becoming a lot more competitive. And instead, because of lobbying from various pressure groups around the environment, tax and so on, we've ended up trying to compete on regulation by showing that we can do even more. It should be the complete opposite. UKCA, for example, as a certification, as a way of certification, was supposed to free you to do those things. I think a lot more effort needs to be put in there. But to be honest, quite a lot of what is burdening businesses, apart from red tape, things like the Employment Rights Bill coming along, it's the basics. It's energy costs. Far too high, unbelievable. 4 times the industrial energy prices of the US. Our oil and gas industry is completely disappearing. We need to get very serious about energy. We need to look at the fundamentals. What's happening on energy? Yes, tax overall. Working, flexibility in rules, removing the red tape, making sure that we are staying competitive and that we're attracting the right businesses here. I do worry about manufacturing in particular. I think we're forgetting how to make things. I think a lot of people are thinking it's too difficult here. China is eating everybody's lunch, not just our own. What do we do about that? But what I want you to know is that when it comes to deregulation, we are serious because people like Andrew Griffiths, my shadow business secretary, and I have come from the private sector. I left banking because I stopped being a systems analyst and ended up being a de facto compliance officer. It's not what I wanted to do. There is way too much regulation. It is not growing our economies, and we need to start thinking like businesses. We've come from business backgrounds. We know what's going wrong, and we just need to move very, very quickly because things are getting worse at a pace that is deeply concerning. Thank you.
Another question, please. Number 3 is charging to the back.
Good morning, James Birchwood, Telon Capital and Chair of the CBI Business Rates Committee. We've been behind the slab to slice driver and change. One area that we've heard very little from you has been about business rates, which is obviously a huge impact on businesses. I was wondering whether you have any strategy or thoughts or thinking in respect of changes to business rates.
Right. Well, I'm very disappointed that you haven't heard much from us on business rates, because I did announce a lot on business rates in my conference speech, as did Mel Stride. So thank you for asking that, because it gives me a great opportunity to repeat what it is we're going to do. We have said that we need to save the high streets. And the businesses that are suffering in particular are those on the high street. Retail, hospitality and leisure has been hit with everything from the jobs tax, minimum wage changes, and they are dying. And high streets are a visible signal of decline in many, many communities. We've got to save them. So our policy is to abolish business rates pretty much for the high street. Anyone whose rates are £110,000 or less, we would abolish that entirely, and that will for retail, hospitality and leisure. Those are the people who are struggling the most. And that's one of the things that we know will actually revitalize the high street and ease the burden of business rates. What happened in the last budget with the changes, reducing the discounts and so on, caused a lot of stress for businesses across the country. In my constituency, many people just decided to give up. We cannot be in a position where we are causing businesses to give up because it makes sense not to work. We need to get Britain working again. Business rates is another area, like deregulation, where we can do better for a lot of businesses.
Thank you. Another question? Yeah.
Hello, Tanya Bowers, Association of Professional Staffing Companies. And certainly we support you in your comments around the Employment Rights Bill and how it could destroy jobs before it makes jobs. My question is around industrial strategy. The last government had a bit of a suspicion of an overarching national strategy, which we've now seen with the current government, and the previous talk was around some of the innovations arising from that. As a previous business minister, what's your position on a national industrial strategy?
Thank you, Tanya. It's a really good question. I mean, what we saw was industrial strategy changing every 2 to 3 months to the point, 2 to 3 years, to the point where we couldn't call it a strategy. Businesses need certainty. And between Brexit and COVID and a war in Ukraine, it was just going from pillar to post. I think that the best industrial strategy is keeping things simple. That's why we've got a cheap power plan. Driving energy costs down is the one single thing that will make life easier for everybody. I don't believe that government should be picking winners, but I do believe that government needs to create an environment for businesses to win. Right now, we're setting everyone to lose, and I think that we're setting everyone up to lose. That needs to change. So right now, the biggest thing that we think can be done that is an industrial strategy is our cheap power plan, and the Shadow Energy Secretary, Claire Coutinho, has done a fantastic job showing how it will save a lot of money for household bills, but also bring industrial prices back down to more sensible levels. That will then spur growth, stimulate manufacturing, and do a lot more than government taking bits of pots of money here and putting them in places where it's not actually enough to make a big deal. I don't think lots of businesses scrabbling around for small pots of money is an industrial strategy. Let's focus on something simple that everybody understands, and that's what our cheap power plan is.
Another question? This may have to be the last, depending on the length of the answer.
Okay, hint taken.
Hi, I'm Diana Vernieto, Edify Collective Education. But actually, I wanted to ask a follow-up questions regarding the high street. We have seen after Brexit, the duty-free VAT removed, and this would actually seen how France has been thriving, especially on the luxury. What we will do about this in order to, this is a low-hanging fruit to really give the high street a little breather and the luxury industry in the UK. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is one of the things which I see as the Treasury never properly modelling dynamic effects. So I was a junior minister when that was brought in, and there were lots of officials running around saying, oh, when we leave the EU, lots of people are going to be doing tax-free shopping, it's going to be terrible for us. And I was saying, no, this is a good thing. More people will come in, more people will shop, we will make more money. I lost that argument, and what we saw was tax-free shopping removed to the point where we are now losing business to France, to Italy. I know lots of people who have said that their businesses on the high street closed. This is London high streets mostly, Oxford Street and so on. It closed, they're just basically shop windows. People are looking and maybe shopping online or going elsewhere. This has to be fixed. So Andrew and I are looking at it. I was very much against the tourist tax. I don't think it's really raised any money. We have lost a lot of competition. It has been bad for the high street. Many people will know when I was business secretary, I did a lot of work with the British Retail Consortium and other luxury goods associations to try and fix this. I think it's something that we can fix. But there is a more fundamental problem, that the Treasury does not model behavior changes when it looks at taxes. It puts up taxes and thinks that everything will continue as it was. You look at VAT on private schools. They're not getting the money that they thought they would get. Schools are closing. They're now having to look after more children going to state schools. The same thing will happen with the family farms tax, the family business taxes. People are leaving. We need to start modeling behavior. Otherwise, we're going to have all sorts of terrible tax policy coming in by people who are overly simplistic about how they analyze it.
Brilliant. Leader of the Opposition, Kemi, thank you very, very much indeed. That's been great. And thank you also for being so straightforward about the Employment Rights Bill. I've been responsible for employing people for nearly 40 years, and I have thought my way into what it's going to be like to employing people, taking those risks if it goes where it is. It's going to be really, really damaging. So all strength to you for calling it out. It needs a lot of rethinking. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage His Excellency Mr. Vikram Doraiswamy and Rain Newton-Smith.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to speak to captains of British industry here at this important stage. And thank you for the opportunity to follow upon the Leader of the Opposition. I'm not sure what that suggests you expect out of the India-UK relationship, but I suspect it is at least something that is different. As Monty Python has said, now for something completely different. I recognize that you have something important coming up later this week, which might be germane to your futures. So I've decided that I would talk to you a bit about something that I trust would be of interest in the context of where we stand globally, which is a bit about why the transformation that's underway in India matters to the UK. And I hope that in the next 15-odd minutes, of why this matters. By Woody Allen in his remark when he said, thanks to a speed reading course, I was able to read War and Peace in 1 hour. It's about Russia. I fear you might have a bit of a sense that you might have heard something about India at the end of this. If that is so, I'd still consider myself successful because it is certainly of interest, I believe, to you. More seriously, as they say, the interesting thing that for those of you who are of my generation, and I suspect a fair few are, The transformation of India is similar to what happened in China in the early 1990s. But it is different because it is taking place in a country of greater complexity in a democratic polity. I think it's that is worth telling today. It's an ambitious transformation, and it is an important transformation. Indeed, I believe at this somewhat fraught moment in the world, it is a particularly important transition, important in the sense that it's vital for all of us that we succeed. As we know, national transformations take place through societal progress, economic growth, and the delivery of citizen-centric governance. Taken as a whole, have done well. The net result of these forces is to improve the quality of life for every citizen. Each of these processes is today underway at scale in India. That's easy to say, of course. As a colleague of mine from the British Foreign Office once said, India is the land of big numbers. And so